We have passed through one more eclipse in our life. Let's all pass through eclipses this easily in future too. Welcome once again to News Analysis. News Analysis is a weekly magazine on current affairs. To begin with the main points in a nutshell. Haiti lies in ruins. Grim search for untold dead. Complete solar eclipse watched by millions. Housekeeper sues Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu's wife. Kenya police shoot hate cleric Al Faisal supporters. Google closes down Chinese operation due to hacking. FDA concerned about bisphenol A in food packaging. Now the news in detail. Heavy aging with nary supplement. Each year, millions of people fall prey to false promises that this, that, or the other formula or fortified food can protect their hearts, prevent cancer, improve memory, strengthen their bonds, uncreak their joints, build their muscles, even enable them to burn extra calories without moving. The desire to achieve a healthy old age is laudable indeed, and will be even more so in the future according to a projection of the century-long rise in life expectancy published in the Lancet in October. More than half the children born since 2000 in wealthy countries can expect to celebrate their 100th birthday. If so, many of us are destined to become centenarians. It is all the more important to be able to enjoy those years unencumbered by chronic diseases and disability. There is no virtue in simply living long. The goal should be to live long and well. Do you have the right stuff to be a doctor? Not long ago, a friend confessed that her son, who spends much of his free time volunteering at a children's hospital and who is applying to medical school, has been particularly anxious about his future. His test scores are just okay. My friend said, the despair in her voice nearly palpable. I know he'd be a great doctor, but who he is doesn't seem to matter to medical schools as much as how does he does in his tests. Her comment brought me back to the many anxious conversations I had with the friends when we were applying to medical school. Over and over again, we asked ourselves, do we really need to be good at multiple choice exams in order to be good doctors? We were referring to, of course, to not just any exam, but the big one, the Medical College Entrance Exam. MCAT, the standardized cognitive assessment exam that measures mastery of a pre-medical curriculum. Back then, as now, American medical school admissions committees required every applicant to sit for the MCAT, like our All India entrance exam. FDA concerned about substance in food packaging. In a shift opposition, the Food and Drug Administration is expressing concerns about possible health risks from bisphenol A or BPA, a widely used component of plastic bottles and food packaging that is declared safe in 2008. The agency said Friday that it had some concern about the potential effects of BPA on the brain, behavior and prostate gland of fetuses, infants and children, and would join other federal health agencies in studying the chemical in both animals and humans. The action is another example of the drug agency under the Obama administration becoming far more aggressive in taking hard looks at what it seems as threats to public health. In recent months, the agency has stepped up its oversight of food safety and has promised to tighten approval standards for medical devices. Concerns about BPA are based on studies that have found harmful effects in animals and on the recognition that the chemicals seeps into food and baby formula and that nearly everyone is exposed to it starting in the womb. but health officials said there was no proof that BPA was dangerous to humans. After Google loud stance on China, US treads lightly. Last month, when Google engineers at the sprawling campus in Silicon Valley began to suspect the Chinese intruders were breaking into private Gmail accounts, the company began a secret counteroffensive. It managed to gain access to a computer in Taiwan that is suspected of being the source of attacks. Peering inside that machine, company engineers actually saw evidence of the aftermath of attacks. Not only at Google, but also at least 33 other companies, including Adobe Systems, Northrop Grumman, and Juniper Networks, according to a government consultant who has spoken with investigators. Seeing the breadth of the problem, they alerted American intelligence and law enforcement officials and worked with them to assemble powerful evidence that the main masterminds of the attacks were not in Taiwan, but on the Chinese mainland. But while much of the evidence, including the sophistication of the attacks, strongly suggested an operation run by Chinese government agencies, or at least approved by them, company engineers could not definitively prove their case. Today, that uncertainty, along with concerns about confronting the Chinese without strong evidence, has frozen the Obama administration's response to intrusion, one of the biggest cyber attacks of its kind, and to some extent the response of other targets, including some of the most prominent American companies. Haiti lies in ruins, grim search for untold dead. Survivors strained desperately on the Wednesday against the chunks of concrete and buried the city along with thousands of its residents, rich and poor, from shanty towns to the presidential palace, in the devastating earthquake that struck late Tuesday afternoon. Calling the death toll unimaginable as he surveyed the wreckage, Haiti's President René Préval said he had no idea where he would sleep. Schools, hospitals, and prisons collapsed. 16 United Nations peacekeepers were killed, and at least 140 United Nations workers were missing, including the chief of its mission, Haid Anabi. The city's Archbishop, Mr. Joseph Serge Miot, was feared dead. Tensions mount in devastated capital as nations step up aid pledges to Haiti. The distance between life and death narrowed in this flattened city on Thursday, with survival 2 days after a huge earthquake struck, depending increasingly on the luck of being freed from the under rubble, on treating the thousands of wounded, and on speeding the halting flow of emergency food and water. Patience wears thin as Haiti's desperation grows. As tension rose, there is battered Haitian capital. Relief workers scrambled on Friday to deliver desperately needed food, water, and medical care. Recover survivors still trapped in the rubble and collect thousands of decaying bodies from the streets. New Jersey lawmakers passed medical marijuana bill. The New Jersey legislature approved a measure on Monday that would make the state the 14th in the nation, but one of the few on East Coast to legalize the use of marijuana to help patients with chronic illness. The measure, which should allow patients diagnosed with severe illnesses like cancer, AIDS, Lou Gehrig's disease, muscular dystrophy, and multiple sclerosis to have access to marijuana grown and distributed through state-monitored dispensaries, was passed by General Assembly and State Senate on final day of the legislative session.